Everybody thinks you're a nice guy, but you're not.
Are you a nice guy who's tired of being overlooked?
Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our life and we'll call it fate.
What if being nice isn't enough? Join us for an eye-opening discussion with Dr. Robert Glover as he uncovers the real reasons behind nice guy behavior and how to break free from toxic patterns.
Desires to always be what we think people want us to be means we're not authentic. I was realizing and accepting I'm not real honest. I will spin a story in whatever way I think it needs to be spun in order to get approval, but mainly to avoid disapproval. Truth doesn't need any coaching or rehearsing. Let's just tell the whole truth. We think that, if I set boundaries, it's just going to piss people off. The truth is, boundaries are what allow people to get close to us and have a relationship with us. It isn't until we love ourselves that we can actually let other people love us or that we can love other people. Does every woman want a strong man? No, that's okay.
Have you ever wondered what masculinity even is in the modern era? Are you ready to move beyond the macho bully or the soy boy archetypes? I'm Marc Azoulay, and this is the Men's Therapy Podcast. Together, we'll explore how neuroscience, Jungian psychology, and Buddhist philosophy can transform your life, your marriage, and your business. Are you ready to deep dive into the minds of men? Let's begin. Hello, welcome back to the Men's Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Marc Azoulay, and I have a very special interview for you today. I'm talking with Dr. Robert Glover. He is the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy. If you have listened to the show at all, you've heard that book being mentioned by myself, by many of our guests. So I'm really excited to have the author and the kind of progenitor of this whole idea on the show with us today. He also leads a group for men community called Integration Nation, where men can overcome some of their nice guy tendencies and evolve into becoming better versions of themselves. So Dr. Glover, welcome to the show.
Mark, thanks for the invitation.
So I'm so excited for the show, and I got tons of questions. I got a whole notepad over here.
You won't even get to a fraction of them, I promise.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure there's so much wealth of information. But I just want to start with kind of your personal story. So how did you get into this work? Were you a nice guy yourself?
Well, probably going back to day one, yeah. In terms of how did I get into this work? Just really going back. Kind of like everybody else, when you're an adolescent, everybody says, what are you going to do? And I didn't know. Like most people don't know. And actually my first direction was going towards the ministry. I went to a Christian college to study to be a minister, I grew up very fundamental Christian. And my very first semester, I had Psychology 101, and I absolutely loved it. And so I kept going in that route of combining the program of ministry, psychology. Went on, got a master's degree in marriage and family therapy, got a doctorate in marriage and family therapy, and kind of was going down that route, both, I was working as a minister and, doing, counseling, but always wanted to be kind of in private practice, being a therapist. And I blew up my first marriage and got married a second time. And about 2 years into that marriage, my then wife said, everybody thinks you're a nice guy, but you're not. I can't trust you. You don't follow through. You can be passive aggressive. You can hurt me. You embarrass me. And she goes, you need to go get help. And I thought, well, you're the one who's always unhappy. I give and I give and I give, and it's never enough. Okay. And, but she was pretty serious. She said, I'm leaving you if you don't go get help. So I thought, okay. And luckily, I landed in some pretty good places. She kept telling me I was a sex addict, mainly because I wanted to have sex with her. And she didn't seem to. So I went to a group for sex addicts and quickly found out I wasn't having enough sex to be a sex addict, and I wasn't actually sexually compulsive. But it was perfect because it was all guys. It was like my first men's group. And, these guys were pretty serious. Most of them were indeed sex addicts. They had some pretty gnarly stuff going on. And for the first time in my life, I just began to open up and reveal me. I got vulnerable. I shared things about me I'd never shared before. And what I realized is it felt good. And at the same time, I also found a therapist that I began working with. Not real long after that, a friend recommended me to a group he was in, led by a female therapist around sexual shame. It was a men's group. I was in there about 5 or 6 years, did most of the writing of No More Mr. Nice Guy while in that process of in that men's group. And as a marriage and family therapist, as I started noticing me and my nice guy patterns, my giving to get, my avoiding of conflict, my being less than honest, my having secret hidden behaviors. I came to see my toxic shame. And I started noticing men coming to me for therapy, sometimes on their own, sometimes with their wife or their girlfriend. And they were saying the same things I was saying. I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I treat her better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. I give her everything she wants. It's never enough. She's never happy. When's it going to be my turn? She never wants to have sex anymore. And I thought, wow, I'm not the only one that thinks if I'm just nice and give and am generous, then I'll get back what I want. And how come I never do? Now, I noticed another segment of men that I didn't immediately put them together because I was mainly looking in terms of like these relationship dynamics I was experiencing. But these were the single guys. And they'd say, you know, Robert, I've got lots of female friends. Women think I'm great. You know, they call me, they tell me their problems. I'll do anything for them. And they all say, some woman's going to be so lucky to have me someday, but they don't want to be my girlfriend. That was before the word friend zone really, took off in our internet vernacular. So these guys were also nice guys. So I started No More Mr. Nice Guy men's group. I'd already been leading one other men's group, and so I just kind of the next one, I just branded it with, all right, this is for guys that identify with this dynamic of, you know, being this passively pleasing guy and being frustrated and unhappy. And so I'd already been working on me maybe 5 or 6 years at that point, my own nice guy patterns. And I guess my tendency has always been to write, to kind of communicate ideas. So I just started writing, you know, a few pages to give to these guys, you know, every Wednesday when we get together for our group. And I just kept writing over, you know, 2 or 3 year period. And the guys kept saying, this is good stuff. And they and their partners would say, Robert, you need to write a book. There's lots of people that need this. You could go on Oprah. This could be a bestseller. There's nothing to stymie a first-time writer than saying his book's got to be a bestseller and he's got to go on Oprah. And it has turned out to sell very well. Haven't ever made it on Oprah. But who knows? Could happen.
Who knows? Could happen. Yeah. Not done yet.
Yeah, and so that book over time turned into No More Mr. Nice Guy. It took me about 5-6 years to write it, about another 3 years to get it published. A lot of publishers said, Robert, we like your book. It's well written, but our marketing department says men won't buy a self-help book. Well, that was kind of right at the beginning stages of Amazon, of Kindle Reader and ebooks. And then along came, you know, podcasts, interviews, and come to find out men buy self-help books. You know, they'll watch an interview, you know, the person will mention a book, it goes in the show notes, they click on that, they go to Amazon, they buy it on Amazon. Amazon said, people who bought this book, this book. Now, I don't know if men read the books, but they buy them. My royalty checks have gone up every year for the last 20-something years since No More. So apparently nice guys and men do buy self-help books. So that's kind of how I got from, you know, point A to point B where I am. You know, I've been working on my nice guy issues probably for 30 years now, probably about 30 years. I'm 68, and I still can see them pop up. I still can see how they manifest. I see them quicker. I notice them. I have tools to work with them. I've worked with thousands of nice guys. That's all I do now is work with men, workshops and seminars in my men's program and classes. I just love working with men. So that's how I got to where I'm at and talking to you right now.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. And like, yeah, your legacy is clear. I think you've touched so many men and helped a lot of nice guys overcome, you know, this tendency of, like you said, you know, to go through about like minimizing our needs, just giving and giving and giving, being this kind of like support character, you know, or side character in other people's stories. And what we talked about, where I want to dig into a little bit more, is the shadow side, right? Because your first wife, right, or she says like, hey, you're not a nice guy, you know? And I think a lot of these guys, right, like you write about in your book, have deep resentment. They often have like, you know, some violent tendencies. You know, they are cut off from their partners. They're often very judgmental. So you talk a little bit more about that shadow side of the nice guy and why it's not so nice?
You know, I began No More Mr. Nice Guy really right off. Kind of once I introduce a few nice guys and kind of, you know, from kind of different manifestations of nice guy syndrome. And then pretty early on, dive into why nice guys aren't so nice. And well, we're not nice for a number of reasons, not because we're bad people, not because we're not nice people. As a friend of mine told me one time, he said, Robert, you can be a dick, but you're not a dick. And he says, when you can integrate those two things together, then you'll be whole and complete. And so, yeah, I've had to accept I can be a dick. I can be a hurtful person. I can be critical. I can be judgmental. I can be passive aggressive. I can be mean. And I'm not a mean person. And, that's probably the big challenge that most of us, and probably especially as men, really have to integrate that I can be a good person, a good human being, a caring, generous, loving person, and I can be dickish, and I can be judgmental, and I can be critical, and I can be deceitful, and I can be passive aggressive. So when we start taking ownership of that, that's what I refer to as an integrated man in the book. So fundamentally, because nice guys are trying to do two things, and the backdrop of those two things is that every nice guy at a very early age, and when I say early, I mean infancy, we began emotionally internalizing beliefs about ourselves and the world. And those beliefs were usually centered around our losses, our abandonment, our pain, and we internalize that I must be the cause of those things that happen to me that are painful. Every child does this. Children are basically narcissistic. And so we believe there must be something wrong with me. I must be bad, that I cause dad to yell at me, that I cause mom to have that look on her face, and we're not thinking this, we're just feeling it. It's a very emotional state. And all humans experience this, and then we all try to adapt to this sense that I cause these bad, painful things to happen to me, and if I cause them, I can either prevent them or make them better. It's a very grandiose way of viewing the world, but again, children are grandiose. So nice guy syndrome is just one of those ways that we're dealing with what's called toxic shame, this internal belief that I'm not okay, I'm not lovable. And then add on to that a huge amount of anxiety that nice guys tend to experience as children, because we often don't grow up in the most stable of environments. Even the ones that look like, oh, everything was fine, it usually wasn't. There's something underneath that made it less than ideal for the nice guy. And so nice guys have this shame and this anxiety, and what they do, the way the particular neuroses of nice guy syndrome shows up is through two ways. One, trying to become what we think other people want us to be liked and loved and get our needs met. So we're chameleons. If I say something and you nod and smile, okay, I did that right. But if you frown and oh no, I better not go there again. So we're trying to become what we think other people want us to be. And the second thing that nice guys do as a way of surviving and dealing with that sense of toxic shame and anxiety is hiding anything about ourselves that might get a negative reaction from other people. And that's usually hiding our needs, our wants, our thoughts, our feelings, our opinions, our actions, and especially because of the culture we live in, we hide our sexuality. Now, none of that stuff goes away. It's still down there. It's got to find a way to come out. And often when it comes out in those unconscious ways, it's not at all pretty. Carl Jung said, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our life, and we'll call it fate. So it comes out, and it rules our life, and it keeps co-creating patterns because we've not dealt with those things we push down. And those desires to always be what we think people want us to be means we're not authentic. There's no real us showing up. We'll say or do anything to make sure we don't upset anybody and that people stay happy with us and they don't leave us or reject us. But through all of that false identity, giving to get, the covert contracts as I call them, the pleasing behavior, the avoidant behavior, all of those things lead to us often not being very nice. For example, I often refer to the lie coach that I used to have in my head, where the coach, he'd coach me on how to tell a lie, on how to best, we don't think of it as lies, but it's like, oh, tell her this. Oh, we'll leave that part out. Oh, misdirect from that, or pretend it's this, or, and the coach would say, tell her, And, so early in my own nice guy recovery, one of the things I had to start working on was realizing and accepting I'm not real honest. That was kind of a blow upside the head because I'm thinking, I'm a nice guy. I'm not like those bad liars out there. And I go, well, wait a minute. I will spin a story in whatever way I think it needs to be spun in order to get approval, but mainly to avoid disapproval, right? To have someone not get mad at me or reject me. So, for example, what I started doing when I made a commitment to get honest. I was, again, married to my second wife who told me I wasn't a nice guy, and she was right, is that whenever I noticed that coaching up a lie in me, tell her this, leave that part out, or make this up. I'd come home and tell her, I was going to lie to you. Here's the lie I was going to tell you, and here's actually the whole truth. And funny enough, she never actually got upset when I told her that I was going to lie to her, tell her what the lie was, and tell her the truth. Now, she was actually really good at catching me when I just would lie to her. And kind of ironically, she said, you're lying to me. I can tell. And she would tell me what she thought the truth was. Often she was right. I was lying to her, but wrong about the thing she was accusing me of. So I had this built-in, deniability. No, that's not right. But I'm still thinking, how the fuck did she know I was lying to her? Well, she just, body language, tone of voice, she was very empathic in that way. So I learned, okay, I can't get away with lying to her, so I might as well just tell her the whole truth. I was going to lie to you. Here was the lie, and here's the truth. That was really fundamental. And I still, practice that to this day. I still pay attention. Does that lie coach? He doesn't show up very often, but every now and when he shows up, I'll go, why now? Why are you here now? Why are you thinking we need to coach up, the truth? The truth doesn't need any coaching or rehearsing. Let's just tell the whole truth. Let it land where it lands. So those are just some reasons why the nice guys often aren't nice, because we're not clear and direct about what we want. We give to get. We let resentment and rage build up. We can get passive aggressive. We don't tell the truth. We can even be downright mean and what I call victim pukes, where I've let something build so long, something sets it off, and everything I've been rehearsing in my head that I wanted to say but I didn't ever say now comes out, and it's not very pretty. Then we usually have a shame attack back up. I'm sorry, dear. I won't ever do that again. And so, that's the nice guy patterns.
Yeah, I call it with my clients, like emptying the resentment bucket, just like dumping
I love that.
Somebody and just like being like, okay, what else is in the bucket? Oh, this thing, we got this, and this time, and another time. And a lot of guys have that. And, for the guys listening out there that do that, I'm sure you'd agree, it's just not effective, right? It ends up like overwhelming our partners and nothing really gets accomplished other than we get that kind of like cathartic discharge. But it's not really an effective way to have a conversation or to resolve an actual problem.
They may have a shame attack, and, because they've got their own shame bucket as well. They got their own toxic shame, and they may have a shame attack and either defend themselves or shame dump back on you. Or, they may try harder to please you, like maybe they did with mommy or daddy when they weren't good enough with mommy and daddy. But you're right. It's not effective. It doesn't resolve anything. And it's much clearer if everybody, but let's just say we're talking to nice guys, start taking full responsibility and accountability for their needs, their wants, their feelings, and make it a priority to practice communicating those things to the people around us. And if they're available to help us get our needs met, great. If they're not, great. We'll find other people, other resources to help us get our needs met. Same thing with boundaries. If somebody's behaving in a way that, is violating our personal space or hurting us, we can say, hey, stop. I don't like that. Or, ouch, that hurt. Did you mean it to? Or even if you do that again, we're done. Whatever it might need in any given situation. Even that can be, I communicated all three different types of boundaries there in one sentence, all without me blowing up or having a victim puke or, being a victim, raging. So, and these are skill sets, that require practice and learning because we don't get taught this stuff when we're young. We just don't get taught how to ask for what we want, how to surround ourselves with people who want to help us get our needs met. None of us learn about boundaries growing up. And when we do learn about them, we think that, if I set boundaries, it's just going to piss people off. But the truth is, boundaries are what allow people to get close to us and have a relationship with us. So all of these skill sets are things we have to learn. And I don't know if you've ever been to a 12-step meeting or seen like 12 steps, on a movie or something. Okay. So, you've heard plenty of people say, I'm a grateful recovering addict, whether it's alcoholic, drug addict, whatever. And, it seems paradoxical to say, well, I'm a grateful recovering. And the reason the gratitude's there is because it was the big stick that woke them up, that saved them from a life of whatever direction they were headed. Waking up to nice guy syndrome can be that same big stick. In fact, one of my associates, one of my coaches, he and I co-wrote a book, kind of an overview of all the things I've taught over the years, called The Big Stick, because I use that term a lot. So waking up to nice guy syndrome can be the big stick that, oh, I'm not such a nice guy. Or, maybe, everything that my partner's been telling me, maybe had more truth to it than I thought. Or, maybe it's up to me to take accountability for getting my needs and wants met, and take responsibility for my behavior, and take responsibility for where I'm at in a relationship. And, it goes back to, as you said earlier, taking responsibility for where we're at in life. But sometimes we have to have that big stick to wake us up to even know what it is we need to take responsibility for.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to bring you back to the needs and wants, because it's something that comes up in my groups a lot with dudes, right? They're like, I don't know what I need, or I don't want anything, And I think when you talk about that chameleon thing, they've spent so much of their lives chameleoning that they really do lose a sense of identity. They're not quite sure who they are when nobody's watching. It's kind of the way that we put it. And, I talk about mindfulness and meditation and retreat. I think that's important to disconnect. But I am curious for you, how does a guy figure out what he needs? Because what I hear from guys, often in the beginning at least, they're like, well, I just want space. I just want to be left alone, or I just need someone to take care of me. But they don't really know what that means.
I just want her to be happy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just don't want to fight anymore, right? I just need a peak of calm household. But yeah, I'm curious, if you have any suggestions or to kind of riff on that idea of how do you figure out who you are when your life has been so focused around being somebody for other people?
That's such a good question, because this is such a core piece of recovery from nice guy syndrome. And in the book, I talk about making your needs a priority, or even putting yourself first. You tell a nice guy, okay, you got to start putting yourself first. They get a deer in the headlight look, like, oh no, that'll make me like my dad, or that'll make me like all the jerks I've heard women complain about, or that's just a fast track to being unloved and unliked and being alone if I put me first. Whereas the opposite is actually true. It isn't until we love ourselves that we can actually let other people love us, or that we can love other people. Yeah, I mean, if you don't feel particularly lovable, if your bucket's pretty empty, you don't have anything to give to anybody else, and you're probably not going to let anybody else give to you, because it feels weird, it feels foreign to actually to accept love. And so you're right, nice guys for the most part have this really odd relationship with needs, and that is, most nice guys, if you could, you get a bunch of nice guys in a circle and say, what is your belief about the importance of your needs? And you'll hear, everybody else's needs come before mine, or I have to give to other people. My needs aren't that important. I'm bad for having needs. I'm going to get in trouble for having needs. You'll hear all of this. So early on, we internalize these belief systems that either our needs were bad, unimportant, or just not as important as everybody else's. So as children, we may have tried to be needless and wantless. Go along to get along. Don't be a moment's problem. How many nice guys have you heard that? Yeah, I've always just tried not to be a moment's problem. Dad had so many needs, I didn't want to add to mom's burden. Or my brother was such this, or my sister was that. I didn't want to be that. Or I knew I had to take care of mother in order for her to be, healthy enough to take care of me. So, I had to make sure her needs were met. So, I hear all these stories. Now, the truth is we can't truly be needless and wantless. I mean, we wouldn't survive for more than a day or two if we truly did not get our needs met. So because we think we're bad or wrong or whatever for having needs, we go about trying to get them through what I call covert contracts. And a lot of people have told me that was kind of maybe one of their biggest takeaways from No More Mr. Nice Guy. And it was for me as a recovering nice guy. And basically what covert contracts are, there's three core covert contracts for nice guys. Covert contract number one is that if I'm a good guy, I'll be liked and loved, And the women I want to have sex with will want to have sex with me. Or if I'm gay, the guys I want to have sex with will want to have sex with me. And so we're kind of defining what a good guy is. And, you know, we have the scoreboard up in our living room that all the good things we do that make us a good guy. Even just because we think I'm a good guy, well, that makes me a good guy, right? And look, I do everything for everybody. That makes me a good guy. So everybody should like me and love me. But the truth is, you know, number one, we're not all that good. And number two, not everybody's going to like us or love us. We don't like and love everybody else. Why do we think everybody should like and love me? And, you know, especially if I, you know, am a good guy, all the women who complain about all the jerks out there will want to be my girlfriend or want to have sex with me or will treat me well. So that's covert contract number one. They're all fallacies, by the way. And they're all an if-then proposition. And they're all giving to get. So they're all manipulative, i.e., another way, nice guys aren't so nice. Covert contract number two, if I meet your needs without you having to ask, then you will meet my needs without me having to ask. So I think I can read your mind and I'll do all these things for you. But that's just caretaking. It's fixing. Oh, I'll do this for you, and then you'll appreciate me because maybe you can't do it yourself, or you'll just think I'm special because I gave this nice thing to you. I took good care of you. And then we expect you to do it in return. And then when you don't do it in the way I expected, I'm resentful because I've been given to you. You're not keeping your side of the contract, but you don't even know the contract exists. So that's what leads to a lot of that resentment. Passive aggressiveness and victim pukes and nice guys are these covert contracts, and especially that giving to get. Covert contract number three is if I do everything right, then I'll have a smooth, problem-free life. That's those guys you were mentioning. I just want some peace and quiet. I just want to be left alone. I just don't want any more fucking drama, you know. Yeah, which I can relate to all that. I've said all those things. You know, can we just have a discussion about this? Do we really need to have a fight about it? So those are the three covert contracts. And as I said, they're all manipulative in nature. And we do them because we don't think it's okay to have needs and wants that we just publicly state. And no one ever taught us to surround ourselves with people and resources that want to help us get our needs met and who are there to help us get our needs met. So that's something that I have to teach nice guys how to do it. And I usually use a teaching tool that I call cooperative reciprocal relationships to help us take responsibility for our needs and wants. But going back to your question, I remember when I was in private practice, you know, seeing lots of people a day. I was leading 5 men's groups a week at one time in private practice. And, you know, I talked to a guy about making his needs a priority and putting himself first. And they go, well, that will make me selfish. And I say, okay, when I look up the word selfish in the dictionary, I want to see your picture. And I said, let's just reframe this. Let's call it healthy self-interest. That as a child, you were dependent on mom and dad to meet your needs. Their job's done. Now it's your job. Nobody else is on this planet to help you meet your needs and wants. And they go, I don't know what they are. I would give them a legal pad and a pen and say, okay, let's just start brainstorming about things, you know, your needs, your wants, what would you like to have more of in your life? And I bet guys just stare at the legal pad. I don't even know where to start. And so one of the things I would often do is I said, what'd you like doing as a kid? Riding my bike, you know, drawing pictures, reading comic books, building tree forts, you know, and that's probably changed now. Now watching Netflix on you know, my mom's iPhone, you know, that's what I like doing as a kid, depending on the person's age. And I go, why'd you quit doing them? Well, I don't know. I guess just at some point it seemed like I wasn't supposed to do those things anymore. And I go, let's start with that. You know, did you like taking pictures? Did you like walking in the woods? Did you like building tree forts? Did you like making up games? How can we get you back to some of that stuff that you used to do, that you just loved and you enjoyed? And then, you know, we can just get even more practical. What are your needs? Guys, you probably found this. We want to overanalyze everything. We want to break everything apart, you know, and get the paralysis of analysis. Well, what exactly is the difference between a need and a want? And I go, fuck it. It doesn't matter. We're not going to worry about it, you know. We're just going to start by, if you want it, if you need it, if you think it's a good idea, we don't have to figure out if it's a need or a want. And so we'll get real practical. All right, you need to eat. You need to sleep. you need to exercise. And come to find out, if you start pointing out, guys actually, for the most part, have been getting their needs met. They do go to bed at a certain time. Maybe they could do better than they do. They do get up at a certain time. They do eat enough to survive. They maybe occasionally get to the gym. Maybe actually do a lot of those things. They've just never identified those as that's me getting my needs met. And so, we start with those kind of places to help guys start identifying their needs and their wants. And again, I think it's actually good to not worry about making a distinction between the two. Like, needs are inherently important and essential. Wants are, optional. Now, if you want it, why is that optional? If you want it, it's yours. Make it so, and find the resources and the people that also want to help you get that want met. So this is, I think, an ongoing process. I went through, I've done several different phases to help me address this in myself. One of the things I did years ago, back again when I was married to my second wife and really my big recovery phase, is that I went on a giving moratorium because I was a giver. I got lots of value. Even if the people around me didn't appreciate me, I just got lots of value out of, the surprises I gave, the things I did for other people. So I was in therapy, and so was my wife, and realized through, a series of events that, I gave to get. I gave to get approval and recognition and hopefully some sex. And so I went on a 1-year giving moratorium where I did not give anything to anybody except my children. On, what they needed a new coat, we got them a coat, on their birthdays and Christmas. But I didn't give my then wife Christmas presents, Mother's Day cards, just stopped. And whenever I had the impulse to give, like in the mall, and I go, oh, she would like that. Oh, it's on sale. I'd have to, I was on a moratorium like an addict. No, that's my inner circle. That's off limits. That's my drug. I'm not going to go there. And in return, anytime I had the impulse to give to somebody else in that codependent, covert contract way, I had to give something to me. Now, it didn't have to be in kind. It didn't have to be, I saw a coat, I was going to buy her, I got to go buy myself a coat. But I did have to at least go wander around a little bit, see if there were any coats on sale for guys, right? So, and then do something good for me. Now, maybe it was just go for a walk, get a Starbucks coffee, whatever it was, I had to give to me. So I did that for an entire year where I did not give any gifts. It was just a moratorium. That made me a lot more conscious of all that giving to get and made me get in touch more with my own needs. Now, every woman I've ever been with has told me I'm difficult to give to. And so if a partner would try to give me something, I'd either, oh, no, that's okay, I don't need it, or I'd work hard to give them something else. And so for the last at least 15 plus years, 20 years, maybe, I've really been working at letting people give to me, even giving me a compliment. You started this interview with giving me a compliment. I listen to them, right? I receive them. If somebody emails me and says, Robert, you changed my life, you saved my life, thank you, I read it, right? I read every email I get. And I have an assistant who answers them, but I read them all. I remember, I like to tell this, when I was dating, I'd gotten out of my second marriage with my partner who rarely ever wanted to have sex. And that had gone on for about 14 years. And I got out, started dating and meeting women who liked sex. And because I was used to doing all the giving and sex, because my wife didn't give much, I was uncomfortable when women don't want to give to me. And one of the things I realized is these women, a lot of them took pride in giving good blowjobs, and they got pleasure out of it, and they'd be trying to give me pleasure, and I'm no, let me do something for you instead, and I realized, wait a minute, I'm robbing them of pleasure. Who am I to do that? And I thought, and this is a great opportunity for me to practice receiving, and I promise you, as weird as it sounds, experience of a woman giving me pleasure and me making myself relax. I'm like, this rigid corp, breathe, relax, enjoy. Because it's no, I'm not supposed to be the one receiving. So I would consciously do that. I remember I dated one woman. We'll get off the sex topic. And I met her because she sold me shoes at Nordstrom, a department store, clothing store. And so she'd always worked in retail sales. And I remember we'd been dating for a month or two, and she came over to my apartment, and I'd done my laundry and left it out on my couch to fold. And she just starts folding my laundry. And, we're going to go on a date. I said, we're going on a date. You don't need to fold my laundry. She goes, oh, I like doing it. She said, and I'm good at it. I go, okay. And then she folds it, puts it on a stack on my bed. She said, but I won't put it away for you. I go, well, I'm not going to put it away either. I'm going to leave that stack there. Remind me somebody loves me and practice. So from then on out, when I did my laundry, I would leave the clean clothes on my couch purely as practice, because I knew when she came over, she'd look for the clothes, and she would feel hurt if I didn't let her fold them. So I thought, all right, I'm giving her pleasure by letting her give to me, and I'm practicing, because how can I live a full, abundant, blessed life if I'm not a good receiver, if I can't open to all that wants to come to me? So that's been a big practice that I still work at. I've married again. Lupita and I, we've been married almost 8 years now. And like she told me before, so Robert, you do everything. She's Mexican, so all our conversations are in Spanish. I got to learn Spanish in my 50s and 60s. So she says, Robert, you do everything. You pay all the bills. You've given me a good life. My kids have a good life. She said, let me do things for you to show my love. And okay. So like, I'll get up from the table from dinner because like I need a fork. And I'll walk into the kitchen to go get a fork. She'll go, where are you going? And I'll go, I need a fork. She goes, let me get it for you. Now, if I let her get it for me, that makes me like my dad, the boss of my mother around. Mrs. Glover, get me a fork. And I never wanted to be like my dad, right? And so all of a sudden, that's why I'm not good at receiving, because my dad was, always, he was the ultimate empty hole that everybody needed to give to dad. So I didn't want to be that way. So now I let my wife, when she says, let me get the fork for you, I go, okay. I sit back down. I can get my own fork, but I sit down and I let her walk to the kitchen and bring me a fork. This is how you practice receiving. And I think the guys listening to this, if they start noticing, people do want to do things for us. They do want to give. Even a smile, a compliment, are people wanting to give to us. So, I don't know. You said to ask you questions. How have you learned to practice receiving?
It's a lot of that. I mean, literally our couples counselor had us do the thing of like, I do all the cooking in the home, right? And have my wife do the cleaning and just sit and like stare at the TV or sit, read a book or whatever. While she
Instead of feeling guilty, I should be up cleaning too, right?
Dude, it's so hard. It is still hard because there is that part of me that's just like, well, what am I doing? I'm being lazy. I'm just like, I'm taking advantage of her. Like, I'm not doing anything important. I should just be up doing like all this kind of like thing runs through my head.
Especially if you're like watching baseball or football that's totally, trivial or frivolous, and she's cleaning toilets, right?
Right. Yeah, there's that like guilt wave that you talked about that just kind of like comes in and hits. And it's like, I have to like literally self-regulate through that, and just breathe and be okay with it. I mean, sexual, same thing.
Like, it's okay to watch baseball. It's okay to get a blowjob.
Right. Yeah. It's all the same thing. And the sexual dynamic is, of course, a mirror of the relational dynamic, right? So I think
always
a lot of guys probably relate with what you're talking about. There really is that like guilt thing. And it does take almost like a acclimation process to be like, it is okay just to sit and allow my partner to do, what they need to do, and give. And I think what you mentioned is so important. And I want you to expand on this because a lot of nice guys, because we're not so nice, like you said, we don't think the giving, it doesn't come with strings attached, because every time we give, there are strings attached. So I think it's really difficult to trust other people's generosity as being a pure thing. And I know a lot of the guys, and me included, also struggled with that idea of being like, oh, I don't want to owe anybody anything. So I don't want anyone to give to me because then I'm kind of, I just like accrued some debt in this big spreadsheet that I've been keeping in my head,
Yeah. I've seen that over and over again too, and I think that probably works as me as there's an emotional debt, because none of us like being in debt. Nobody. And, so even if you reverse it, all this giving we do to other people and not letting them give back to balance that ledger sheet, we're putting them in debt. And believe it or not, nice guys wonder, well, how come when I was nice to that woman, she left, she disappeared, she ghosted me. And, that happens because all of a sudden, the guy's just going overboard, like giving to a woman he just met or been on a date or two with, doing surprises for her, this and that, expensive dinners, and they disappear. And we wonder why. Well, they see it coming. They know they're going to be in our emotional debt, and, they'll run from that. So let me go back to the cooperative reciprocal relationships, because this to me has been so powerful that it is our job to take full responsibility for getting our needs and wants met in life. And we need lots of resources. It really does take a village. It takes a tribe to really get our needs met. Typically, what most men do is we either do the lone wolf thing and try to figure out how to get all of our needs met by ourselves, and we can't. We can't. We can't go out usually and like slaughter a cow and butcher it, cut it up and then cook the meal. We do got to depend on some other resources to get our needs met. And because we either tend to invite people into our life who can't even meet their own needs, that's what makes them attractive to us. Oh, I can give, I can fix, they'll like me, they'll appreciate me. Then we expect them to be giving to us. If they can't even get their own needs met, how are they going to, help us get our needs met? So we have to take responsibility surrounding ourselves with what I call cooperative reciprocal relationships. And so, for example, you and I have a cooperative reciprocal relationship. It's more of a professional one, but I break them down into 4 types. People, so just friends, associates, people we know. Professional, this might be your coach, your accountant, your therapist, your attorney, your chiropractor, your employer. It can be practices. Now, this isn't people, but it's things that you do. Your meditation, your prayer, you going to the gym, you going for walks in nature, things you do that fill your bucket. And the 4th I call packs, kind of like alliteration. So people, professional, practices, and packs. Those are the groups that you're in. Your men's group, your group of buddies, your workout class at the gym. All of these are filling our bucket, and in return, filling their bucket. That's why it's cooperative. It's reciprocal. It's back and forth. So you and I have, I call them CRRs, cooperative reciprocal relationships, in that you invite me to come on your podcast. I assume I'm going to get some value out of that, some publicity, visibility for my book, my work, my men's program. You assume you'll get, some views, some subscribes because you had Dr. Glover on your podcast. And in most relationships, whether they're more professional like ours or more personal, they only continue to exist if everybody involved is getting some perceived value out of the exchange. So like, for example, if you kept inviting me to come on your podcast, and let's say I kept coming, and I kept selling more books because of it, and you kept getting more subscribes, we'd probably think that's a good idea to continue this relationship. We're cooperating, it's reciprocal, it's serving us both. But at some point, if I felt like I was being taken advantage of, or you were just using me, or I wasn't, getting any good visibility, or if you're going, Dr. Glover just comes and tells the same stories all the time, I'm not getting any more subscribes or likes, So if it quit serving us, we'd probably either renegotiate it, have a conversation, or just move on. So when I teach this concept, I usually do it in my workshops. I teach it at 3 levels, and I have guys get a big piece of paper out, draw a stick figure in the middle, draw a bunch of circles around it, which are the CRRs, and then between the circles, kind of an arrow pointing both directions, towards your bucket, towards their bucket. And I begin by having them list all the people in their life that are cooperative, reciprocal. Who do they get value by hanging out with, spending time with, connecting with? All the professionals in their life. Is it their accountant, their chiropractor, their massage therapist, their fitness coach, all the professionals, all the practices that they have. Do they meditate? Do they go to the gym? Do they take daily walks? Do they, read for joy? Do they journal in the morning? All the packs that they're a part of. So page 1 is identifying the resources you have right now. And what we'll use it, I like doing this in a group, because then you people go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. And once we see who's on that page 1, we can then ask ourselves, how can I more effectively use these resources that I have? Because we might have a buddy that, we've known him since college, but we haven't talked to him in 6 months. And we go, yeah, I should give him a call and, connect. Or maybe I've got a dentist and I go, it's probably been a year since I got my teeth cleaned. Oh, I should call the dentist, go get my teeth cleaned. It's cooperative reciprocal. So page 1 is identifying what you've got and maybe identifying how to use what you've got more effectively to meet your needs and fill your bucket. Page 2 is identifying what you don't have, what you would like to add basically to page 1. And again, doing this in groups, I'm just identifying this in groups while I'm teaching it. Like about 8 years ago, I said, I need a men's program. I said, I've gotten married again. We're having some struggles. I need to connect with men. I live in Mexico. I feel isolated from other men. And a guy who was in my workshop said, Robert, I've been in this men's program for a year. If this guy studied with David Data for about 10 years, I said, I'm in. And I did. I joined the program and did it with him like 6 years. And so it was transformative. But I said it. I need a men's program. I also in workshop, said I need a new accountant and I need a financial advisor. My taxes are going up. I need to learn how to manage it. I got done with one workshop down in Mountain View, California. It was like a one-day program, 30, 40 people. Afterwards, a guy comes up to me and says, Robert, you've changed my life. I attended a workshop with you 10 years ago. I've been here. And I said, I'm a financial advisor and I want to help change your life. And, went through a due process, took my wife to meet him, even though she doesn't speak English. And he's been my financial advisor for, 6, 7 years, turned my finances around. Just last April, I'd done an 8-week fitness challenge and it kind of felt good. I was feeling a little bit stronger. I've been consistent, working out. And I realized the next level was, eating better, getting, dialing in the nutrition. So we were doing this exercise in a workshop, and I told the guys, I need a nutrition coach. 2 guys raised their hand. I know one because two of the men in the group were actually personal trainers, so they knew one of them knew a nutrition coach. The other one said, "This is my personal nutrition coach," and so I contacted both, and I hired the one. It was a woman who's a former professional fitness model and has a master's degree in gerontology. So she mainly works with older dudes like me, helping us maximize. So I thought, this is perfect. So I've been working with her probably less than 6 months. And I'm as lean as I've been since I was in my 30s. And, that is a powerful cooperative reciprocal relationship. But it came from a page 2 statement, I want this, I need this. And then it's funny how this shit just materializes. Page 3 of the exercise is listing the relationships that are either no longer cooperative or no longer reciprocal. Your best buddy from college that you used to go out and, drink and do stupid stuff, but you haven't drank in 10 years, he still wants to go out and drink and do stupid stuff. And you kind of still feel like, well, we've been friends, but it just doesn't serve you. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's an intimate relationship. Maybe it's a job. If it's not serving you, if it's no longer cooperative or reciprocal, you probably either need to have a discussion about it with the person or people or whatever involved, the institution, renegotiate something, or just cut it off, clear space for other good stuff to come in. So this practice, I do it, pretty much every workshop I lead, so I get to do it, 4 or 5 times a year. And I think it's been transformative in my life. It makes me use the resources I have and stay conscious of them. It adds new resources to help me get my needs met that have just really been life-changing. And it helps me reduce the dead weight, the rotten limbs, the anchors I'm dragging behind me, and just let them go and move on and have more energy and freedom and space to fill my life with what I want, which gives me more energy to give to the people in my life. So this practice is simple. Guys listening can get just 3 pieces of paper out and just do it. Go share it with a good buddy. Share it with their men's group. Share it with their therapist. And it's just a great way to start taking responsibility for your needs and your wants.
Yeah, I think that's great. And so would it just be intentional about your life, which I think so much of what is lacking, right? Like these audits, I think, are really, really critical. I know you have a nice guy workbook, and I imagine that's in there. or you said it's at the workshops where people can get it. But I think that it's critical to like be the author of your own life as you're moving forward.
I love that.
And not being, passive, which I think a lot of nice guys, we were either trained or conditioned or chose to be passive in one way or another. I want to take a little different kind of question. You talk about women a lot, right? And a lot of nice guys are nice.
Do I really? Do I talk about women a lot?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but I think it's a big reason, right? It's like either the mom's conditioning, right? Or like you said, they want to get laid or they want to,
or talking about my exes. Yeah. We do. Most nice guys do tend to seek out female approval. And we think we have to get that female approval to have companionship and sexual access.
Yeah, 100%. Right. And in some ways, if we're feeling empty, like we talked about before, like the approval of a woman is the only thing that really, makes us feel like we're alive, or like we're valuable. So, of course, men, first and foremost, we have to take responsibility for this and breaking this pattern. Like the buck stops with us. And I'm curious, what can women do to help support nice guys in their lives or to start to kind of deprogram it from their own way? Because I grew up very similar to what you were talking about, with a lot of women telling me, don't be an asshole, don't be, like be nice, be kind, listen to us. And then similar, I was friend zoned all the time, and my mother also was, raised as a feminist, and she's a, doctor, female doctor, kind of like first wave in the 60s. And like, that was a big deal, right? To be a female doctor in a very male dominated place. But the messages I got were about how men were always the problem, right? How they were blocking her, how they were getting in the way of her success, about how they were, dominating, the classrooms and the hospitals and things like that. If you're enjoying the podcast so far, please hit the subscribe button and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us to reach more men and inspire them to become the best versions of themselves. Thank you for your support. And now back to the show. So yeah, I'm curious, like what can women do to start to shift this paradigm and raise men that are more integrated?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure I've got a ready answer for you.
All right, nice. We get a novel answer. That's exciting. Yeah.
Well, I've been asked the question before.
Yeah.
The problem is not that I don't know the answer. The problem is I don't know that there is an answer, which are two different things. Okay. Here's the deal. Over the years, I've received a number of emails from women, both in terms of how can I help my nice guy partner and how can I help my nice guy son. It breaks my heart, and I imagine the mother's heart's breaking. The mother wrote me and said, my son's 15, 16. He's already got a girlfriend. The girlfriend walks all over him, treats him like shit. And, I hate to see, what can I do? And to kind of put it in perspective, I've got a 19-year-old stepson. I've been in his life about 8 years. And so I came in his life, he's about, 10, 11 years old. And his girlfriend lives with us. She has for probably about 3 years. And she's a nice enough young woman and a little bit dominating. And it's funny, I used to have to kind of bite my tongue when my wife would give my son's lectures scolding him on why he shouldn't let his girlfriend dominate him. Do you see a certain paradox there that maybe, a fairly strong woman, my wife, not fairly strong, she's a force of nature, raising, a son, with, when he was born, there was turmoil in his life. His father was an addict and abusive and never supported the family at all. So, my wife had to be strong. So my son, as a young boy, had to be strong in a number of ways. And then his sister comes along and, a couple of years when he's 2, 3 years old. And, kind of had to look out for his sister in many ways. So mom was working a lot. And, again, my wife is a force of nature. She is a strong woman. And, the times I've heard her just kind of scolding and, kind of yelling at my son and threatening, to, take her chancla, her flip-flop off and, kind of give him a beating with it. And she's the most loving person I've never actually seen her hit the kids, ever. But I've heard her threats on a number of times. And so, she's, always been this strong, dominating mother to my son. So is there any surprise he goes out and picks a fairly dominating girlfriend? And then his mother tells him he shouldn't be doing that. I'm going, listen, if he does what his mother says, he's still letting a woman there's a no-win situation. So I heard David Davis say years ago, I was at a conference with him. He says, if a woman tells a man what to do and he does it, she's now polarized him into his feminine. Now, we're talking about relationships here, not like in a workplace or something. Maybe, I guess workplace as well, but let's talk about relationship. So if a woman starts telling her husband, you shouldn't be such a nice guy, you should set boundaries with those other women, you should do this, you should read this book, you should go to, if she tells him to do it and he does it, he's been polarized into the feminine pole, and she's in the masculine pole. She's in the leader, dominant pole. He's in the passive following pole. And unfortunately, the key dynamic of nice guy syndrome is that we're in what I call our lower feminine all the time, of being done to, going along to get along, trying to please, trying to get external validation and approval. Those are what would be identified as feminine traits in this particular model. Masculine is self-validating through masterful action. The masculine decides what feels right and then does it. Okay? So I saw an internet meme years ago, and about several things that, the new rules of what a woman can or can't do in a relationship. One of the rules was you can tell your man what to do or how to do it, but not both. Right? So, if a woman's telling her, do this and do it my way, well, of course she's completely dominated him and he's completely submissive. And again, I'm a big fan of, having both masculine and feminine energies and poles, and that being reciprocal in intimate relationships. They tend to work best that way. But if the woman has any desire for the man to be the default masculine pole, who will show up and make a decision, who will lead, who will set the tone, who will penetrate the world, who will penetrate her, she's got to let go of that masculine role. So when I've worked with couples a lot, one of the things I had to work with women over and over again of letting go of just stepping up and taking charge. Now, I've said for a long time, I have great empathy for women, and I'm not judgmental of when they become controlling. If you think about it, I've always identified the female as a security-seeking creature. Women have always felt vulnerable walking the planet, throughout all of human existence. They were slower, less strong, they may be carrying a baby, they have a child. They've just always been vulnerable. Hashtag Me Too was just a big statement of female vulnerability. We're done too. Ask any woman if she feels safe walking through her neighborhood, not only at night, but even during the day by herself, okay? Women have a vulnerability we men probably, unless you've been violated or abused or bullied a lot, probably not going to understand. So if the feminine historically looked to the masculine to provide and protect, whether we call that the patriarchy and, rail against it or see that it had good features as well, and a woman has never been looked out for by the masculine in her life, she's going to take control. Because why wouldn't you? Why would you just sit around waiting to be provided and protected for? And that's, a lot of what feminism was even addressing. So when I was taking salsa lessons years ago, and once I got good enough at it that I could actually lead halfway decent, I could actually feel the beat, hear the beat, and lead on the beat. It took me a while. And, I'd be dancing, and women, the two things would happen. They'd either want to dance on their own beat, which kind of ruins the dance. It's hard. It's hard for the woman to enjoy dancing if she's trying to set their own beat rather than following the lead of her partner. The other thing that women at times try to do, especially if you're in a class together, is called back leading. They try to help you lead the move. They try to help you spin them or, whatever. And again, they don't get to just get spun. They're helping you, which ruins the fun and actually makes it harder for the lead. And once I got good enough and had a little confidence, and the woman was either trying to dance on her own beat or help me, I would pull them in, kind of get a little closer frame. I'd whisper in her ear, let me lead. And it was funny how many women, they all do the same thing. They'd all would kind of pause and they all shake their arms out like this. I don't know if you can see my arms. So they all go like this. They go, I know. They go, I have a hard time letting go of control. And I go, you're going to enjoy this more if you do. And so there's the piece. I don't know that I want to teach women how to backlead or how to get the man to dance on their beat. And so what I typically tell women is two things. One, get him the book. Just set it on his nightstand. Honey, you can read it or not, but I've heard it's a good book. And they can read it too. Get their own copy to read. Don't share it. But, just give them the book. Say, if you want to read it, great. If you don't want to read it, great. If they get some therapy or coaching, or if the guy reads the book and starts working on his nice guy issues, the woman's going to actually have to work on not jumping in and taking charge and taking the lead at stuff. And that can be really frustrating and anxiety producing for a woman who can competently probably take the lead in a lot of things as she waits for her husband to do it or boyfriend to do it, because she really rather would not have to make all the decisions, that he would make a few and lead. She's going to have to be supportive and reinforcing of when he does make those attempts, however clumsily he does it. Another piece is, I think women often have to work, believe it or not, being better listeners. I've worked with couples where the woman's main complaint was, I never know what he's feeling. He never lets me in. I never know what's going on inside of him. And I've had them sitting on my couch, and I'll watch the guy start to quiver or his eyes start to mist, and the woman will just be going on and yakking and talking while her husband's right there getting misty-eyed, and I'll have to stop her, and I'll say, listen, you say you never know what's going on. He never expresses his feelings. But look, he's sitting right next to you, and you don't even have a clue that he's having feelings. I said, maybe you need to start working at being a little bit more attentive rather than telling him how much he doesn't have feelings and just taking and leading the show. And so, same thing, with a mother and her son. Get him the book. Tell him once and only once if you think his girlfriend is being dominating, and that he would feel better if he stepped up and led and didn't let her treat him bad. And then keep your mouth shut, as much as it breaks your heart to watch your son get walked on by another woman. And, one of the things on my to-do list, hopefully before I die, is I've outlined a 5-book fiction series about a young boy starting on his 11th birthday through about his 19th birthday, each book being like 11th, 13th, 15th, 17th, 19th birthday, of all the way and going through every developmental stage an adolescent goes through, parental divorce, getting friend zoned by girls, falling into addiction, finding purpose and meaning in life, to write, I first thought a graphic novel, but I think it'll just be fiction to where, and some fantasy built into it, where it starts, the first book for 11-year-old is written for 11-year-old, and the last 5th book will be a 19-year-old's understanding and reading level, but, where you could read any of them in between. So that's one of the things I want to do to help moms and dads have some resource for their young sons, because we are breeding more and more nice guys. The Generation Z calls them simps. More and more of these passively pleasing boys who have no real social skills, who are just, hanging out in the nursery, watching a lot of videos, playing a lot of video games, maybe smoking a lot of dope, drinking a lot of alcohol, jerking off to a lot of porn, and they're unhappy, and they're lonely, and they're miserable, and they have no hope of getting a girl, and no hope of making a difference in the world. Because really what it goes back to, when you started to ask me the question and then kind of steered it towards what can women do, to me the question is, what can men do? Because, as you know, our ancestors got initiated into the scary, challenging world of the masculine by our forefathers, by the masculine men in the tribe who'd also been initiated. And what's happening now is that men don't get initiated into the world. There's no real initiation. You know, it used to be the military might have been part of it. Before that, apprenticeships, you know, even just growing up on a farm 100 years ago, you got initiated by dad, grandpa, uncles, cousins, and you learned how to live in the man's world. Nowadays, that just doesn't happen. And so it's not, in ways, it's not, you know, the fault of the millennials or the Generation Z, that so many of them are kind of lost. And, you know, statistics are showing that, you know, more and more men haven't been in a relationship for years. Some, you know, many men have never had sex or haven't had sex in a long time. Marriage rates are going down as the age of marriage gets higher. Scott Galloway talks a lot about how men can't even afford, you know, to buy a house anymore. You know, they can't support their families. So there is a real crisis, but I do think it is the elders, us older men, that need to be helping the young men find the way. And I'll just put a plug in. That's one reason I created Integration Nation, not just with young men in mind, but just men in mind in general, to give us community and initiation and belonging to work through the things we need to work through, to have the kinds of relationships we want, to have the purpose and passion we want, to give back to the world in the ways that we want. And we can't do it alone. Men want to go on their own, but we need to do it, again, as a tribe, as a crew. And so I'm just a big fan of creating those kinds of communities. And hopefully we'll see more and more of these communities reaching out to the young men that don't just involve Andrew Tate and the message he's giving them, that you know, gives a little bit more of an open-hearted message, especially towards women, where they're not weaponizing, you know, what they're being taught against women to use them and get what they want from them, but to actually, you know, cooperate with women that, again, cooperative reciprocal relationships. How does everybody involved get value? But again, nobody's teaching young men how to do that. So I'm a big fan that we men need to be teaching them. And so back to answer your question, you know, probably not a lot that the woman can actually do to help the guy, other than, like, you know, I'm grateful for my ex-wife that she gave me the ultimatum. You go get help or I'm leaving you. That was the big stick upside my head, and sometimes we men need a big stick, whether it's, you know, recovering from an addictive behavior, recovering from, you know, our nice guy syndrome. We need some bottom that we got to hit, some big stick upside the head to say, I need to find a different way of doing this.
I think that's a key point, right? I think men crave feedback, and I think we are enabled a lot and lied to in our own ways a lot in our lives. So we don't know what's working and what's not working, and we end up being really lost. You know, so I think.
Well, what do you mean by that? What, give me an example of how we get lied to and enabled. That's a good point.
Oh, for sure, right? So like the nice guy, right? Back to the example, right? Like being friend zoned, you have the women in your life telling you, like, "Oh, you're great. You'll find a great woman. There's many fish in the sea. It's all awesome." But then not me, right? Like, even though you have a crush on me, right? And it's like pretty obvious, right? Not me, because I think they're not telling us the truth of, like, hey, here's some things that you could actually work on, right? Maybe you're too nice, or maybe you have this like vindictive side in there. Right. I think also men get a lot of, like, we have privilege, right, in some ways. So I think we advanced easier than some other people, right? So because of that, we don't have to really look critically until we hit that kind of, like, you know, Robert's Moore law of, like, failure, right? Like, you get promoted to your highest level of incompetence, you know, like, usually a lot of guys, we can coast for a while until it becomes a little bit too late. And it's like, oh shit, like, I don't really know what I'm doing.
Well, yeah, I've got a whole class that I wrote 20 years ago called "Nice Guys Don't Finish Last; They Rot in Middle Management."
Yeah,
you know,
exactly,
we kind of reach that, you know, that level of, okay, you know, we're good and we're conscientious, but we're not great just because of our nice guy patterns. So yeah, okay. So I get what you mean, that there's not a feedback loop a lot of times, because even, like, example, take young men. You know, a young Gen Z guy, some, you know, 19, 22, 23, 27-year-old can actually skate by for years without contributing a goddamn thing. You know, live with their parents, play a lot of video games, smoke a lot of dope, and still get by. You know, it's amazing how many, like, young people don't drive anymore. I couldn't wait to get my license at 16. Now, like, you know, a lot of these young dudes, I don't want to drive. I don't want to have to maintain a car or get car insurance. And maybe that's wise, you know, but it's kind of like no real motivation, because they can just skate by. Somebody will pick them up and drive them. They can get an Uber, you know. So nowadays it's just too easy to get by. And so you're right. There's not those feedback loops that say, this isn't going to work well for you in the long run. That's why I speak again of the big stick. And the reason I love working with men, men typically really appreciate it when I give them clear, direct feedback. You know, what the fuck were you thinking? Or, you know, really? That made sense to you when you decided to do that? And without it being shaming, I'll say with a smile on my face, and I'll go, man, that's not going to work for you. And nobody tells them that with love. We men will respond to a pretty big stick if it's swung with love. And we do need it. We do need it. And again, that's where the initiation comes from. And that's where, you know, like in 12-step programs, you know, where sponsor comes from. Is sometimes we need a sponsor to say, you know, you know what it's like being in a 12-step meeting and somebody fairly newish maybe, or maybe even been a while but hadn't done their deepest work yet, starts telling some scenario that you just go, oh man, that is so filled with rationalization. They're already on the slippery slope, and then you don't see them for 6 months, and then they come back again and go, I had a slip. You saw it coming, right? You knew it because you've done it. You've been there. You've watched it enough times. We need the people who slipped and relapsed and fallen on their faces enough time to help us not do it quite as many times and learn a little bit quicker. But again, and where do we get that in modern culture? You know, when we men need it. I tell people my book is not a record of my successes. It's a chronicle of my fuck-ups. Everything I write in No More Mr. Nice Guy came from me trying too many times stuff that didn't work very well. And I go, oh, okay, maybe I need to find a better way of doing these things. And that's been my journey for the last 30 plus years, is how can I find a better way of doing what I'm doing that's not working as well as I would like?
Yeah, I like that. And we're talking about like real like eldership, you know, like really stepping into being an elder man and guiding younger generations to not repeat the same mistakes. And I agree. I mean, I read a lot of the Robert Bly stuff, the mythopoetic stuff, the ritual, all that. I mean, we're on the same wavelength. Like, I think we do need that. And, you know, my company provides that. I know you provide that. I think it's like Mankind Project, you know, provides that. There's a lot of places where people can go.
I'm just thrilled. I'm thrilled because when I started my recovery 30 plus years ago, all there was like the mythopoetic stuff. I went out in the woods, I had a talking stick, I beat a drum, I said ho, and you know, and that was a good start. And you know, I've done you know, Mankind Project, you know, good stuff. And I'm just thrilled because, you know, back 30 years ago, unless you knew somebody like that knew about the Sterling weekends or knew about this, or you know, you wouldn't find out. The internet wasn't robust at that time. Nowadays, you know, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a men's coach, you know, on the internet. And you know, for good or for bad, you know, like I heard somebody say one time, oh, to have the enthusiasm of a 21-year-old life coach. Yeah, that, you know, that knows how to build a really good click funnel. So, but I'm grateful because now there is a lot of really good stuff. So like when I said 8 years ago in a workshop, I need a men's program, it materialized for me right there. It's out there, you know, the work you're doing. And I do a lot of interviews. And so many of these that people I do interviews with, not all are men's coaches, but a lot of them are. They're working directly with men because they got value out of having had a coach and being in a men's program, and they want to give that same value. So I'm optimistic. I really am. You know, all the things we've talked about, I'm an optimist by nature. And even though I may point out what I see of where we're at, I'm a real optimist. I think we're moving in a good direction of really raising up worldwide just a cohort of men that are already making a significant difference in this world and are going to continue to make a significant difference, who will bless the lives of women, who will bless the life of children. And I see that happening, and it thrills me to death. And it thrills me to death to know that, you know, I've had an important role in that through, you know, the books I've written and the work that I've done. That makes me very happy to know that the foundation of the work that a lot of people do out there was built on the work I did, that was built on the work of Robert Bly and Joseph Campbell and David Data and people that had big influence on me. So I'm just thrilled for the direction that we're going.
Yeah, and I think that's like unquestionable, right? I mean, your name and your book come up in all the circles that I'm in, me kind of the next generation after you. I think that there is that legacy component, and as we kind of try to reach more young men, and you're answering the question already, but I think for kind of the final question, I just want to ask it directly is, where do you see this going? And I agree with kind of what you were saying earlier. It seems like nice guys are on the rise, actually. I'm a millennial, and most of my friends are like this, and I work with Gen Z kids, and a lot of them are like this. And you think of like where I think a lot of our field is still stuck of like toxic masculinity and this like bully dude, that they're behind. They're like 50 years behind, because the real toxic masculinity that I see is exactly what you wrote about, is the nice guy thing. I see that being really the prevalent form of masculinity that's hurting us and hurting women and hurting the planet. So I'm curious, like, what would you add? Because, if you're looking at Amazon over here, it looks like, book came out in 2000, revised in 2003. You can let me know if that's right or not. That's what they say.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, but like, so if you were going to like, would you add anything, now that it's been about 20 years?
Well, they asked me at around 2015 or so, maybe a little bit later, when the book's about 15 years old, did I want to do a revision?
Yeah,
I said, not really.
Yeah.
No, not really. I didn't. And I said, let me write a preface for it, and let me let's just clean up a few things. And then, so they kind of did that update, and then I went and read the Audible version of it. It had been read by a professional voice before, and so we got that redone. I've written some dating books since then. I've got about 6 other books I'm working on. That book for, the 5-book series for men, for young boys. I just keep evolving in a lot of ways, and I like communicating it. But in terms of where we're going, and by the way, I'm 68. When I launched Integration Nation a year ago, I thought, wait a minute, well, what am I doing? Most men are retired and, just sit around playing golf and watching Fox News at my age. And I thought, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I got to commit. So I'm in it for another 20 years. And, my mom's 89. She's still alive and ticking and still sharp. So, hopefully 20 years from now, you'll be inviting me back on your show, and, we'll be still having good conversations. That's that cooperative, reciprocal relationship.
Absolutely.
So here's what I see. For things to change, it usually takes a pretty big swing of the pendulum. And we often mistakenly think, okay, so if things were over here on this side, let's say this was patriarchy for 10,000 years, ownership, colonialism, racism, oppression of women and children, that's the evil of it. I mean, there was positives too. It was providing, it was protecting. A lot of really good things have happened in this world from men. Right.
Yeah, it's not more nuanced thing. It's not just demonized.
It's more nuanced. All right. So almost any revolution swings going the other way. We got to burn the castle, got to, hang the king, have the revolution. So feminism came along, dealing with things, with sexual orientation issues, bullying, and it swung the other way, like all men are evil. I mean, I grew up during the angry feminism of the 60s and 70s. Every man's a rapist. Erection's a sign of aggression. Now they just call it toxic masculinity. And almost as a result of this swing, men have gotten more passive, nice guy, and or they've done their own pendulum swing. Now we'll call that red pill. We'll call that, let's weaponize, weaponize that against women, but men often say, okay, Robert, I realize being a nice guy is not the answer, but I don't want to be the asshole jerk. I don't want to be like my dad. I want to find, balance, happy middle ground. And I say, I actually don't know the tipping point between two toxic extremes, because this was toxic. This is toxic. Whether it's, it's the asshole jerk or the wussy doormat, they're toxic. And I think they're both built upon shame and anxiety. So there's no middle ground there. But that's what pendulums usually do. They usually swing back somewhere. But I think now that we've swung and had the big stick and the wake-up call, it's not let's just react the other direction. It's not just let's find a middle ground. Let's take it to another level. Let's bring it up. And I like that David Data talks about, taking another level. I've been talking about that. I talk about 3 levels. David Data talks about 2. He puts the new age male at a second level. I think it's still first level. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I think we're rising up to where we are helping men be more conscious, more open-hearted, more powerful, more fierce, more in touch with their dark side, more joyful, more connected, more powerful in their relationship, more receptive. I mean, those are the things I think are evolving. And if we can help men be those things, right, rise up to that level, we're going to make a fucking dent in the universe. We're going to make a difference in this world. And I see that happening. See, to me, that's the good news. Yeah, I see men becoming more passive. I see men becoming more aggressive. But I also see men becoming more evolved. I call it integrated man. Might be the authentic man. It might be the conscious man. It might be the grounded man. We get open-hearted man. I don't think it needs a name. But it is a man who's coming up to another level. And that's what encourages me. And the good news is there's women also they're rising, and there's women who are watching the men rising. Because when I tell women what I do, what I teach men, and how I teach, what you and I have been talking about, men being conscious and open-hearted and leading and setting the tone and being powerful and purposeful and fierce, women they get a look in their eyes. They get wet. They get butterflies. They go, can I come stand in the parking lot of your workshops and meet these guys? Will you put a website up where I can meet these guys? Women go, ooh and ah, when I talk about what I teach men. Women are craving this. Does every woman want that? No. Does every woman want a strong man? No, that's okay. But yet there are a lot of women who also swallowed a little bit of the pill of feminism that said, you don't need a man, don't ever be dependent on a man, do it all yourself, don't be submissive. They're going, but I do want a companion, and I do want love, and I do want children, and I do want this, and I do want. And so, but we can actually do it in a more cooperative, reciprocal way than we ever tried to do it before.
Yeah, I think that's so key, right? The idea of men and women, masculinity and femininity are different but equal. I think that's the key, right? It's not different but men are better, right? It's different but equal. And I think letting women rest and bask in their femininity is critical because the majority of them do want that on some level.
Yeah, well, they're in their masculine so much, doing everything day in and day out that and many of them are good at doing what they do. But yeah, most, if they're actually given the chance and get to feel what it feels like, do relaxing into a conscious, loving leadership of a masculine creature. Now that might be even in a lesbian relationship with another woman. Now, and the funny thing is, I think gay culture and lesbian culture gets this polarity much better than we do in straight culture.
Oh yeah.
Straight culture is we got to be all equal. Everything's equal. That means same, right? But I tell you what, without polarity, sex is two bodies lying next to each other waiting for something to happen. Gay men and lesbian women get it. You need a pitcher and a catcher. You need a top and you need a bottom. But kind of we straight people is no. Let's not. Anyway, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, that's another episode. I was thinking there's a lot there, but I know we're heading up on our time. So, Dr. Glover, thank you so much for being on the show. All you listeners, definitely look at our show notes, check out the book, check out Integration Nation, and Dr. Glover, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about what you do? drglover.com. Find my workshops, my classes, my podcast. integrationnation.net. Is my men's program. Yeah, that's another episode. I was thinking there's a lot there.
Check out either one.
But I know we're heading up on our time. So, Dr. Glover, thank you so much for being on the show. All you listeners, definitely look at our show notes, check out the book, check out Integration Nation. And Dr. Glover, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about what you do?
Send the show, send the book, buy 2 copies.
Spread the word.
Yeah, spread the word. I think this work is needed now more than ever. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week, another episode of the Men's Therapy Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. And don't forget to visit menstherapy.online to learn more about the work that we are doing to support and inspire men. Until next time, keep moving forward.